play it back at some later date. First of all, I want to thank Professor Koba for bringing me in today. I'm slightly under the weather in that I have a cold. Many of you that have heard me speak before know that I am a little bit less nasally than this, but I'm doing okay, and we'll keep going. Today we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and really what it means to me and what it means to be a good leader. Because, the one thing I have found, I have my little note card here. The one thing I have found is that leadership is a topic that really is one of those topics where there's no right and wrong answers. So it really is all about personal style, and it's all about personal feelings, and it's all about how you want to go about things. But there are some what I would call universal things that have to do with leadership. So let me tell you what I'm going to do today. First, I want to start with telling you a little bit about me and who I am, and I'll tell you a little bit about SBRnet, my company. Just so you know that I'm not somebody that Professor Koba just kind of pulled off the street or somebody that he met like yesterday. I've had the pleasure of knowing Professor Koba now for almost 2 years. As he said, he is a big supporter of our data. I'm looking forward to getting back to using the data with his classes. Actually, I will be using it on Friday in his sports finance class. But just to give you an idea about who I am and what I'm all about, I am the president and owner of SBRnet together with my partner, Mark Sullivan. I have more than 2 decades, actually 26 years experience in the sports business. I have done everything from working with brands, retailers, the financial industry, hedge funds, private equity, teams, leagues, associations, the USOC, national governing bodies. There really isn't a part of this business that I have not somehow been involved with one way or the other. I have kind of made sports my life. And frankly, I love sports, and, you're doing something you love. It's never like work. And this is never like work for me. I do love research and data. That is something that I do spend an awful lot of time with. I'm more of a data junkie and more of a data geek, as my partner Mark likes to say. Mark is more on the communication side. Mark works really closely with a lot of our social media, getting that out and doing a number of different things. But again, all related to the business of sports. We're all about the business of sports. I do not do anything. I don't do player statistics and on game stuff and all that. Somebody else can do that. That's not my thing. By the way, I didn't ask. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, just to let you know also that SBRnet, my company, we collect data. It says 18 sports up there, but it's actually 19 this year. We actually added Formula One racing. I actually got the bug from watching that Drive to Survive series on Netflix. Have any of you, just out of curiosity, have any of you started watching Formula One or gotten into Formula One since the Drive to Survive series on Netflix? Anybody? I guess I'm the only one. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for raising your hand. By the way, I'm going to pick on some of you today. Even if you don't raise your hand, that's just the way I do things, how I roll. If you don't want to talk, just don't give it in and all that. But I will try to pick on you. And by the way, I don't know anyone's name, but I will try to identify you by some identifiable situation. But again, so we measure 19 sports, 65 categories of data. We've got 6 years of historical data. I'm all about the data. And when you're taking the next course with data, you'll find out. Last year, we did an incredible course with Professor Koba. And I was in class 3 times, and the class presented to me, and it was wonderful. I have to say it was terrific. And I guess we're going to do that again next term. So that's really all about me for now. But what we're going to do now is going to turn our attention to doing a little bit of just to kind of get things going and kind of have a discussion. But what I wanted to ask somebody in the class, or more than one person, is, what does leadership mean to you? And I'm going to ask the young lady that did raise her hand about the Drive to Survive series. Sorry, but you're my first person. What does leadership mean to you?
Leadership
leadership to me is kind of just like setting an example and helping to guide others around me to be able to produce high caliber work.
That's good. What's your first name?
Hallie.
Thank you, Hallie. There's a gentleman right behind you in a white hat on backwards. What does leadership mean to you?
Like kind of like motivating people to do their best work.
What else? All right, so we're going to talk a little. How about the gentleman in front of the gentleman with the dark hat that's on backwards? What's leadership mean to you? That's you.
Leadership to me is giving people purpose and motivation and bringing them together to work towards a common goal. Within
all the answers that were given by now, by the way, were all right. So there was no, I remember I told you there's no right or wrong answer. Okay, we're going to do something that's a little bit unusual. I want everyone to take out their phones right now. Take out your phones. Right now, I know you all have them. What I'd like you to all do is, I would like you, we're going to do a little bit of a poll. So I'd like you all to type in the to area, put 22333, and then in the subject area, put SBRnet 2021. And this will get you into the poll. The first question is, I enjoy Professor Koba's class. Answer is A. What's that? Oh, we're not sharing. Oops. Thank you. Should have told me that before, Tim. Oops.
You're gonna have a lull in your speech there.
Are you seeing it now?
Yep, we got it.
Okay. My bad. So again, in the to column, where you're sending it, it's 22333 and text it to SBR, and then the subject matter, put in SBRnet 2021, and then put in your answer A, B, or C. So far, 100%, huh? By the way, I cleared out the answers from the last class, so no piggybacking on top of the last class. Is everybody answering? Come on, I want everybody in. Come on, everybody. Is everybody doing it? Come on. I know you're out there. Three more seconds or 5 more seconds. Okay, so this was just to get everybody into the survey, because the next question is going to be a little bit more focused on leadership. And in fact, here it comes, I hope. Okay, what would you say is the single most important attribute for a good leader? A, good at communication. B, have a high level of empathy. C, honesty. D, strong organization skills. Or E, belief in company goals. Again, put your answer in. Only one answer per person. In the last class, by the way, I will tell you, communication did dominate. So nobody thinks good organization skills are an attribute of a good leader, huh? Or the most important attribute. So it looks like about 70% of the class chose A, or being a good communicator. Still close to 70. Everybody answer? All right. Again, 68%, 16%. So, okay, so you see the communication, such an important part of being a good leader. By the way, all these answers are correct. There's going to be a lot of that in this discussion. For our next question, I'm going to ask you to name a business, political, or any leader, anyone that you admire. It could be anyone from the President of the United States to Nelson Mandela to Michael Jordan to, in my case, it's my father. I'm going to actually put it in there right now and see what happens. I'm answering my own survey. No, it's not answering for some reason. Don't know why. Two, two, three, three, three. It works. Some interesting answers there. So, by the way, mine was just to let you know, the most important leader that I admire was my father. I come from an entrepreneurial family. My dad ran a business. He did not even complete high school, never went to college, served in World War II, came back, used GI Bill to borrow money from people that he had met actually while he was overseas, and started a business. And luckily my family got to live a pretty nice life, pretty much thanks to my dad. But you know what? For all of us, there's always going to be someone that we admire, or someone who we want to, use, or somebody as a role model, as a leader. All right, let's go to the last question. If you were running a company that manufactures new workout apparel, so you're going to compete with Lululemon, what would be the most important attributes you would look for? Would it be sustainability? Would it be fair treatment of workers? Would it be making the most profit for stockholders? Would it be making the product in the USA, or giving back to the community? Come on, keep answering. So the interesting thing that you're finding is that there's really no one answer to the answer to a lot of these questions. I have to say, though, that sustainability far and away is the most important attribute. And that is really something that we're seeing, especially out of your generation, the Gen Zs, that sustainability is very important, that you want to, limit the impact on our planet. You want to use fabrics that are more recyclable, or more sustainable, to use a better word, and also use up less resources in the manufacturing process. So this is very good. I appreciate everyone taking part in this. This, by the way, is the last survey and all that. But now I want to talk about leadership. By the way, all the answers were anonymous. I have no idea who said what. So you're all good. I'm going to get out of this. And I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Oops. Still sharing now. Give me a second so I can see what I'm doing, because I can't right this second. There we go. Okay. So what I'd like to talk about is what makes a good leader. And by the way, I'm going to ask you in some cases to help me with some of the answers here, or some of the explanations. But to start off, as I said, there is no right answer for a lot of this. Being a leader is based on judgment. And judgment is one of those things that we all have, and that we all generate, and that we all utilize. There is no right answer, but there are some interesting, what I like to call, universal things that you see among great leaders. Number one is that great leaders always see the big picture. They're not just looking at a specific problem, specific goal, easy for me to say, specific objective. They're looking at the bigger picture. So they're looking at how their products, how their services, are, affected by their competition. They're looking at, they're looking beyond their own borders. I like to use that expression, by the way. Let me get a drink of tea real quick here. So try to step back. When you're doing a group project even, or when you're involved in a group, I don't know if any of you are involved in any leadership roles in any type of extracurricular activities. But if you're involved, take a step back. Try to see the bigger picture about what's going on, even though you're focused on a specific topic. but it's always good to see the big picture. I've always considered myself a big picture person, and I always allow that to work. Number three is build a team you can trust. And when you're building a team, it's really all about finding people that aren't like you. It's finding people that are different from you. An example, I'm a type A person. I like to be in charge. You know, I'm pretty, my people think I'm pretty bossy at times. I'm a type A. So what do? I surround myself with people that aren't like me. I surround myself with people that are really good with analytics and data. I surround myself with people that are very supportive of the group and really are there to say, hey, Neil, is this what's good for the whole group? Or is this just good for what you're talking about? You know, and then there are people that are really good at problem solving. So what I do is I surround myself with people that have different skills than I do, different personality traits than I do. But at the top of that pyramid is a fundamental thing, is that you can always agree to disagree. And if you can't agree to disagree, then you've got a trust problem. But if you can agree to disagree, if person A can have a different opinion than person B, but you can agree to disagree and then find consensus, you know what? Then you are really working in a good place. Are any of you involved in any type of leadership roles in any extracurricular type activities, whether it's a club, fraternity, sorority, anything like that? Is anybody involved in anything at a kind of a leadership role? Just out of curiosity. Oh boy, 3 times you've gotten. Hi, what's your name again?
Hallie?
What, Hallie?
Mm-hmm.
Hallie, tell me about the leadership role you're currently involved in.
Right now, I'm the Vice President of Service and Philanthropy for our Student Government Association.
Wow. So how many people do you work with on that committee or group?
There are about 12 of us on the committee.
Are all of you kind of the same personality, or do you find there's a real diverse group of opinions and diverse group of skills?
It's definitely a diverse group of opinions and skills.
Do you think that that's helped you move along your objectives and some of your goals?
Yeah.
It usually does, Hallie. It usually does. Or is it Haley or Hallie?
Hallie.
It usually does, Hallie. So thank you for responding. So another part of being a good leader is being willing to accept responsibility and accountability. When I talk about responsibility, not being afraid to step up to the plate, not being afraid to say, hey, look, I'll handle this, or I'll do this, or I'll be in charge of this. But it also means if you mess up, you got to be accountable. You've got to say, hey, I messed up. But after you're accountable, what happens next? Who wants to say, after you mess up, what is it, how do you react to being, to making a mistake? There's a gentleman sitting in the front row with a knit cap on, whose hand is on his, yep, that's you.
Me.
Yes. When you make a mistake, what's the very first thing you do after you make a mistake?
Learn from it.
That's the third thing you do. What's the very first thing?
You say, oh crap.
Okay, or something worse. You admit your mistake. I made a mistake.
Oh.
I own the mistake. I'm sorry. I own it. And I say that all the time when I make a mistake. Even sometimes when I didn't make the mistake, I still own it. Just because that's the way I am. But own your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. Get better. When you make a mistake, what's not important is that you made the mistake. It's what you do next that's important. We all make mistakes. We're all human. We're all fallible. Okay? We all make mistakes, but it's what you do next that is just so important, and I can't stress it enough. So when you're in a group setting, when you're in a leadership role, when you're the CEO of a big company or a small company, it's always better to use facts than emotions, because facts are measurable. I told a story, a little anecdote in the previous class. I'm going to tell a different one in this class, just for the sake of. But it's always important to have facts. Facts are measurable. Emotions, not so much. I was working with a major retailer in the Midwest, and I'll use the name. It's Meyer. If any of you are from the Midwest, you've heard of them. They're a discount chain. They do food, mass, drug. They're a big chain. They're dominated in the Midwest. They're mostly in Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, places like that. So I went in there one day to do some training with their athletic footwear buyer when I was in that side of the business. And he told me this story. He said, I had an interesting situation with the data the other day. I'm like, tell me about it. So his friend is the Adidas rep. And the Adidas rep came in. They've been friends for like 20 years. The Adidas rep comes in and says, we've got this amazing shoe and it's blowing off the shelves. And, I want to show it to you. And you really need to put this, and you need to order this much and all that. He pulled out his facts. He pulled out his report of the top 50 best-selling shoes or Adidas shoes. Guess what? That shoe was nowhere on the list. So the buyer at Meyer says, hey, look, I don't see that shoe anywhere. What's going on? Well, we've had some delivery issues. There's been some, manufacturing problems. So all of a sudden, the salesman, that had to back up. Because why? He was using an emotional appeal, and the buyer used facts. Facts always work better. There's a place for emotions, but start with facts. You can measure them, and you can also, it's hard for other people to dismiss them as easily. Unfortunately, lately, we seem to live in a society where facts aren't as important, but facts are important. And by the way, you're entitled to your own opinion. I think Daniel Patrick Moynihan said this, the former senator from New York. You're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. There are no alternative facts. That was frequently mentioned in the previous. There are facts. Facts are facts. I like to encourage leaders, and I like to encourage even students, even my daughter, who was a student, not anymore, to read a lot. Listen to a podcast or two every week. Watch some TED Talks. I want to ask somebody in the room. I'm not going to ask for Hallie because I've asked her too many things, but let's see here. The gentleman sitting next to the guy with the wool hat, I can only see half your face. Lean in a little bit to the right. Next to you. Other side. There you go. What do you read every day? Do you read any sports publications? Do you read any general business publications?
Me?
Yeah, you. Yeah.
Yeah. I try to read as much as I can, and I listen to podcasts whenever I can. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm actually trying to start a podcast.
What are you trying to start a podcast on? I actually have my own. I've actually started 4 podcasts over the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's about balancing academics with athletics, and I'll bring student athletes onto my podcast.
Interesting. If you want, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Over the years, I first started. I was one of the original hosts of the Sport Lifestyle podcast. I left that when they decided to change the format and change what they wanted to do. I then started a podcast called Run Matters that we did specifically for the Skechers running brand. So that had a little bit of a finite beginning and an end. But now at SBRnet, we have a podcast that you all should check out if you're interested in the sports business. It's called My First Job in Sports. And it's available on Apple, Spotify, and it's also available, by the way, on YouTube because we recorded each one of our interviews with video. So if you're interested in a job in sports, I highly recommend My First Job in Sports. It's actually, if I have to say so, it's pretty well done. But it's really important. Read a lot, consume a lot, podcasts, TED Talks. I read a ton. My first thing in the morning when I sit down at my desk is, one, I'll go check out Bloomberg News. 2, I'll look at CNN.com. 3, I'll look at Google News. And then 4, I have one of those news aggregators called Smart News. And I'll tend to just, scroll a bunch and see what's going on. But I always want to stay up on what's going on. I listen to 4 podcasts a week. 2 of them related to sports, 2 of them not related to sports. I enjoy it. I'll take a walk around the neighborhood. I'll listen to podcasts. I love Jason Bateman's podcast. I forgot the name of it all of a sudden, but they're really funny. Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and boy, my memory's shot today. But I enjoy podcasts. If you want to know which podcast you should be listening to if you're interested in sports, go on SBRnet. Go on our site. You all have access to it through the library. Go to the library, type in SBRnet or Sports Market Analytics. There's in the resource center, there's a list of podcasts. Pick one, listen to it. You won't regret it. Beware of the haters. Haters hate. Nothing you're going to be able to do about it. Okay? There's always going to be a hater. There's always going to be somebody who disagrees. There's always going to be somebody who doesn't like what you do. There's always going to be somebody who's disgruntled out there. Okay? Beware of haters. Don't let the opinions of one person shade an entire group situation. Right now, a lot of that's going on, and it kind of bothers me. The opinions of the many far outweigh the opinions of the one or the few. Okay? So just remember, haters are going to hate. Don't focus on, a couple of negative comments if you're using social media. Don't focus on it. Move past it. How you treat people matters. A lot of you, of course, know the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Makes sense. However, that is not the golden rule in communications. The golden rule in communications, and we talked about how important communications is communicate with people the way they want to be communicated to. What do I mean by that? When somebody sends me a long email with just paragraph after paragraph, there is little to no shot I'm going to read it. Little to no shot. But when they come at me with a few bullet points, here's what you need to know, or here's the conclusions, or guess what? I'm a bullet point kind of guy. So if you come at me with a lot of paragraphs, guess what? I'm not going to read it. If you come at me with a lot of emotion, guess what? I'm probably not going to read that either. But just remember, how you treat people matters, and communications is different than just kind of dealing with people. There's also somebody, his name is Marshall McLuhan. He's a famous communications expert, professor. I'm not even really sure what his background is. I remember learning about him my freshman year of college. I went to Syracuse. And the very first thing we learned was about the receptor theory of communications. And the receptor theory is not about the person that's actually doing the communicating. It's about the person receiving the communication. So how many of you have sent an email to somebody or had a conversation with somebody and they read something into it that maybe wasn't there? Maybe they somehow thought you were mad at them or angry, or maybe did something. Because remember, it's not how you send it, it's how they receive it and then perceive it. It's called the receptor theory of communication. I always try to think about putting myself on the other end of the communication. What would the person that's reading it think or say? How you treat people matters. Learn from others. That's been, I think, one of the greatest sources of knowledge for me, is that I've learned from others. I almost want to say that I learn at least one new thing every day from somebody else. And you really should try to learn from others, whether it's Professor Koba, other professors that you have at High Point, classmates, roommates, friends. Always try to learn from other people. Because the interesting thing about learning from other people is you learn about their successes, but you also learn about their failures. We're going to talk about that right now. Things don't always go right, folks. It's just life. Be ready when they don't. But when they don't, be ready with plan A or plan B, or plan B or plan C, excuse me. But always assume that things will not always go right, because you know what? They rarely do. I love it when a plan comes together, but more often than not, plan doesn't come together, and I have to be ready with, plan B or plan C. But I will tell you that we learn more from our failures than we do from our wins. We learn more from our failures than we do from our wins. And the other side of that is, if you want to be a winner in business, life, relationships, you know what? You had to have lost, because you don't know how good winning feels until you've lost a few times. I've lost plenty in my life. I've lost parents. I've lost jobs. I've been fired from a few jobs. I've had companies sold out from under me. So I know what it's like to lose. And it makes the wins that much more special. Before I get into the last point, I want to talk about a couple of other things. Don't sweat the small stuff. Have any of you ever heard of that? There are a series of books called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. I highly recommend you read at least one. Read at least one. Don't sweat the small stuff, because you know what? The small stuff's not important. It's the big stuff that's really important. Don't sweat the small stuff. Make sure that you find work-life balance. Whatever that means to you, find work-life balance. Because if you don't, you will burn out for sure. I watched my daughter burn out. She's 37 years old. She burnt out because she did not have a good work-life balance. It was all work, not as much life. And guess what? She burnt out. Now she's taking some time on the beach. So make sure that you do work-life balance. And the last thing I want to talk about is find the fun. I love what I do. And the fact that I love what I do means that it's never going to seem like work for me. I can't wait to get up every morning, get my breakfast, get juiced up on caffeine, and sit down and do my job. Every day presents new challenges. Every day presents a different thing. But I love what I do, because why? I found the fun. I love what I do. We find the fun. Professor Koba can tell you, even when we talk, we don't talk about business that much. Talk about fun stuff. Talk about Professor Koba's family. Talks about my lousy golf game. I talked to professors yesterday. We were talking about the Final Four more than I talked about, speaking in their class. Find the fun, folks. I can't stress enough. If you're going to go into the sports business, there is no more fun business to go into. And if you can't have fun, find something else to go into. Hey, are there any questions about leadership, or any of you have any thoughts that maybe, you might want to add to the conversation? Come on, somebody has to have something. Yes, sir.
It's less about leadership per se and more about your job at SBRnet. Obviously, you've been around the sports analytics and data industry since what you could call its infancy, I imagine. Was there a certain moment in time, or a certain kind of pivot point you saw that obviously now analytics dominate professional sport? They dominate collegiate sports. Even in the high school level now, you're getting crazy advanced analytics.
Yes.
Was there a big moment maybe in like 2007, 2008, or some point in time where you saw how big this idea could potentially come in sports?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I like to say that I was data before data was cool. I've been in it for so long. But I have to tell you that the modern data analytics really started in the financial business more so than anywhere else. I guess about maybe 10, 12, even 14 years ago, a number of hedge funds in particular got very heavily into what they call quantitative analysis, or, they started using, large data sets to do, to be able to do quantitative analysis. And then it just blew up from there. And, now, they've added what they call machine learning and AI capabilities, where the machines are actually able to find the stories or to find the insights. And, it's not even about the person anymore, which, by the way, bothers me. But I will tell you one thing, that there's a lot of people that can do a lot of things with data, but there aren't a lot of people that can tell a story with data. And that's really where the future is. The ability to take the data and tell a story with it. But it really started in the financial world, quantitative analysis. If you want to know where it really started, actually, there's a book written by, I want to say Michael Kelly, I forgot his name, but Flash Boys. If you read that, it really talks a lot about the start of the quantitative analysis business and really what, the demand for data and where it started. The book's called Flash Boys. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank Professor Koba for allowing me to come into class. Professor Koba, by the way, is a wonderful partner of mine and also of SBRnet. He is somebody that you all, can admire and learn an awful lot from. And I'm looking forward to seeing a bunch of you in that. What's that class, Professor? 4100?
4100, yep, strategic management in the fall.
Okay, so I'm really looking forward to that. And we'll have some fun projects there. Last year, we did some stuff on college basketball. We did some stuff on gambling. There's a whole lot of topics that we can, that we can explore. So again, I want to